Good evening, board members and residents. I'd like to call to order our regular board meeting for February 29th, 2024. I'd ask that everyone present please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Vatkins.
Here.
Mr. Brado is asked to be excused. Mr. Olgiati is asked to be excused. Mrs. Rose?
Here.
Mr. Tominelli?
Here.
Mr. Witt? Here. Mr. Verkowski?
Here. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, including approval of the regular board meeting minutes of February 12th, 2024, approval of the bills in the amount of $1,276,088.50, approval of the January 2024 revenue and expenditure report, quarterly treasurer's investment report, and election equipment annual maintenance renewal at a cost of $9,861. Be looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Support.
Okay, got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mrs. Rose. Discussion, board members. Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, board. Next on the agenda is the approval of the regular agenda. I'm not aware of any changes. If there are none, then I'd be looking for a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Support. Got a motion by Mrs. Rose with support by Mr. Tominello. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next is announcements. I have a few brief announcements. The Freedom Trail between Shoreline and Prentice has been repaired. The surface needs new asphalt, but we have to wait until we have warmer weather, but the path is open. We have rolled out our refresh of our township website, and although we are still adding new features daily, you can sign up for notifications of any updated posts on the township website with a click of a button. Just click on Register, found at the bottom of the home page of the website, to sign up today. The Harrison Township Firefighters Local 1737 is hosting their annual Easter egg hunt Saturday, March 23rd at 10 a.m. at the Lance Cruz Middle School Central Outdoor Field, rain or shine. This event is reserved for Harrison Township residents only, ages 12 and younger. Our Harrison Township Library features many different programs throughout the month. The updated calendars can be found on the Township Library's website, htlibrary.org. For more information on times and events, you can also call the library 586-329-1261. And for more information on these, as well as all other township events, you can call the supervisor's office, 586-466-1445. Visit our website, harrisontownshipmi.gov, or follow us on X, formerly Twitter, at harrisontwpmi. Any other announcements?
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that came out and voted in the presidential primary. We had about just under 28% turnout. About 1% of that was early voting. 17% was absentee voting, and we had a 10% turnout on election day, so we were busy. But a big thank you especially to our precinct workers that put in a lot of time, especially adding early voting. We had a lot of people here for 9 days working, and especially the township staff. Everyone sort of comes and helps the clerk's office. We have water and sewer guys that come and help. We have treasurer's office that are running, cleaning out the drop boxes for us. Maintenance guys that help us set up, so it's a big team effort to get that done. So 67 days away from the next election, but we're taking a little break and we'll be ready for the next one.
And out of, I believe, 27 communities, Harrison Township's results were in second,
Yes, they were.
just 20 minutes behind the first. So good job to the clerk's office for an efficient election. Any other announcements?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, just want to let everyone know today is the last day to bring your property taxes in to the township. Today was the last day. And the reason I'm saying it still can be is you can use our Dropbox if you have not paid your taxes. After today, beginning tomorrow, taxes must be paid at the county, and we can no longer take them here at the township. So thanks for everyone who got their taxes in early, and that's it.
So if they're in the Dropbox by tomorrow morning, you'll process them, otherwise after that
Yep.
goes to the county.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, at this point, I would like to turn things over to Paula and Brian for our Parks and Rec Committee.
Thank you.
For, some awards.
Yes, so, for everybody's benefit, I just wanted to tell Paula not yet. Most of the residents know, Harrison Township does not have a formal Parks and Rec, tax that we collect, but through the donations this year of the sponsors that are up there, we've raised over $11,000. So we're able to put on several events, all free, and we could not do it every year. It gets better. That we added an event this year coming up. That announcement will be coming out, but without the generosity of all of our sponsors, this would just not be possible. So it's very rewarding. I know some of you folks I've seen at the events and watching the youngsters enjoy all the events that we do, and actually some of us more seasoned folks that take part in that also enjoy it. So we have different levels of sponsorship. We started our platinum, and then gold, silver, and bronze. So you can see all of them up there that really, it just makes it so easy to plan things when you don't have money constraints. So I want to thank everybody, whether they're here or not here today. So I'd like to just read through our sponsored list, and the folks that are here, we would like to present you with something today. So I'll just go through the list, and then we'll call you up after that. So our platinum sponsors were Jefferson Street Pub, Lambach, is that Lambach?
Lambrecht?
Marina, apologize. Legacy Partners, Lori's Lick 'em Up Ice Cream, Jefferson Motor Services, Shane Brown of Raymond James. Gemini Electric was our single gold sponsor. Silver sponsors are Brittany Parks Apartment, Beechwood Townhouses, Fox Manufacturing, Huron Point Yacht Club, Kirk and Huth, McInray Harbor, PGS Dentistries, and Luigi's The Original Restaurant. Bronze sponsors, Sunlight Market 2, Freedom Boat Club, Wilson Marine, Northern Industrial Manufacturing, Sportsman Direct, Total Sports, and U.S. Auto. So thanks to all of the sponsors, both present and not present, for supporting the Parks and Rec, that we work very hard to do the events every year. So without further ado, I'd like to call up, first of all, Legacy Partners. You could meet over here by the podium. We have a little something for you. Next, platinum sponsor, Jefferson Motor Service.
I'm good with that.
Delegate, right? What is your name? Ryan. Thank you again, Ryan. I think you're a new supporter of Parks and Rec. I don't recall your name being on here last year. Okay, where are you up to your name? Okay. Oh, here we go. All right. Congratulations. Move in a little bit and try and get their name behind them too. Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
There you go. Now we're gonna take a look underneath.
Last but not least, we might have to move some chairs. Shane Brown
And family?
and family. I don't know if everybody got the magazine, so.
The Browns come to pretty much every event as well.
I know, I recognize them from, tree lighting. What's that?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. You want to help plan? All right, beautiful. Here we go.
All right, everybody look at me, 1, 2, 3. Your doggy was in the face.
Oh, can you hold him down a little bit? Right there you go.
All right. Oh, our little one, what you feel wonderful. Thank you.
That dog was in the magazine cover as well.
I
He goes
think I saw.
everywhere.
Claire, we'll send it to you.
One of our silver sponsors. Mr. Who?
Oh, there, I'll let him know.
And our last silver sponsor is Luigi's, and they are not here.
And we have Lambert Marina here.
Oh, I'm sorry, are they?
Do you have Lambert Marina with you tonight? Come on up, Julie.
Sorry, Julie, can we do a little fake out with this so I can take a picture with an award? And
Sounds
then I
good.
will get you- I know we're
Come on, Julie.
Come on up.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
I saw you. We just didn't
Use that one.
get
Use the,
Miscommunication or something.
Listen, there were probably.
use
20
Jefferson.
She's got one.
See what happens when we
Okay.
recognize you? Lambert Marina has been with us for many years as well. I just wanted to kind of give you a quick rundown for those who are still here. For those who are still here, just wanted to give you a rundown of what the Parks and Rec, small volunteer committee has been able to do this year. We started out with a bowling event, then we had a road rally, we had the annual fishing derby. It's free fishing weekend, the first weekend, or whatever, in June. Bigger and better this year than ever. We did 3 concerts in the park. We had a new event called Back to School Bounce with a bunch of bounce houses. We did our Halloween trunk or treating, and then we had our annual Christmas tree lighting and visits with Santa. So it was definitely a busy year. We saw a lot of people come out, a lot of families, so very productive year. We can always use more volunteers, so if you're hearing this announcement, contact Brian Batkins or Paula Rose. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to the both of you, as well as all the volunteers that worked on a volunteer capacity to help put all these programs together. And although Jen heads up our senior center, she's also tasked with helping out with Parks and Rec, and so we're appreciative for all of Jen's efforts to help behind the scenes to make a lot of these things happen. So thank you to all of you.
Thank you, Jen.
Okay, next on our agenda is item D1. If you're following along, that's page 72 in the board packet. Regarding public hearing number 2 for the Special Assessment District for road improvement for Cloverleaf Street and North Blum Drive.
Yes, sir. The second public hearing is to speak to the roll as it's been prepared. Because this special assessment has a split based on which road you're on. There are different amounts. Normally, we have an equal amount per lot, but because of the different materials, it's a little bit different of a split. So the roll was prepared. The people that are fronting the asphalt road are 13,871.84, and the people that are on the concrete section. Microphones, I need, Wally, they're saying they can't hear. Okay. So again, the roll is split between 13,871.84 for an estimate for those that are on the asphalt, and then 6,935.92 for those that are on the concrete. So at this time, we would open the public hearing and allow for residents to speak to the roll as it's prepared.
All right, be looking for a motion to open the public hearing at 7:16 PM.
I'll make that motion.
Is there support?
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Tominello. Any discussion on the motion to open the public hearing? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mr. Batkins?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Brado is excused. Mr. Olgiati is excused. Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Witt, yes. Mr. Verkust?
Yes. So at this time, anyone present who wishes to speak for or against, or speak about the project, floor is open.
Evening, Bill Sorville, resident. I want to read a statement. PA 188, section 41.721, section 1 states the following in part. And to determine that the whole or any part of the cost of an improvement shall be defrayed by special assessments against the property, especially benefited by the improvement. I would request the township attorney interpret that word in front of the word benefit. The word was not inserted in language for no reason. Merriam-Webster dictionary provides two synonyms. First one is particularly, and this second one is specifically. I could rationalize that everyone in the township will receive some benefit from any improvement in any part of the township. That said, a home with a brand-new street in front of it will surely reap much more benefit than a home with 90% of the concrete street being 46 years old. That by your own engineering firm classifies the road to be in poor condition. I use 90% original by calculating the percentage of intended replacement. The petition spells out how many linear feet and how wide it is. You can calculate that. Comes out to 10%. What the engineer gave me a number of 810 square yards is the maximum they're going to replace, assuming costs don't exceed what they think they're going to exceed. Otherwise, it'll be even less than that. So I think that the people in Phase 1 should pay 50% of the entire cost of whatever it costs for Phase 1. That's my opinion. That's only fair. The generous residents of Phase 2 had not agreed to help Phase 1, the project wouldn't even be moving ahead. The circulated petition clearly states a few things I would like to point out. First is that the petition states the method to determine if the petition moves forward or not is by the total frontage. The act doesn't state equivalent front footage or footage determined to be exempt for any reason other than being an alley. The act also has language on setting the SAD district. Petition lists lots 3 through 25, then lots 26 through 74. However, adopted resolutions setting the district states lots 3, 4, 7 through 25, and lots 26 through 74, excluding lots 4, 5, and 6, which are attached to 1 and 4, I believe it is. However, adopted resolutions setting the district changed. The result is the remaining footage owners will pay more. The excluded frontage will still be paved. As stated, the petition clearly states frontage, but further on into the petition, the language refers to shares. The residents did not vote to change the method from front footage to equal shares, which I believe is legally required. This works out pretty good for some owners, which as much as 250 feet of frontage, one of which helped circulate the petition. I believe, despite what has been said at previous meetings, that the owners of the Cloverleaf Estates 2 have contributed enough simply by signing. If Cloverleaf Estates had requested a SAD of their own, they would likely be eligible for a 60-40 match grant. This is from a conversation with Mr. Verkest last week, or earlier this week, I can't recall exactly when. This would mean they would pay 40% less or replace 40% more concrete for the same money. The above points are all factual. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lloydwood, 28329 East Blum Drive. I ran across a couple of papers here that were sent out. One of them being, you guys were always saying how once you sign a petition, it's etched in stone. Nothing can be changed. I got a paragraph here that says completely the opposite. It can be changed. As a matter of fact, and this is something that was never brought up to people at the beginning of the meetings or anything, until the final outcome of this, people can go around and circulate a counter petition to void those signatures out, all of them. I've got it right here. I'm not making this up. That's right on here, okay? The other thing is the special assessment district itself. Excuse me. It says it's going to be based on 70 lots, 2347, okay? 2347. Adds up to 70 all day long. I think we can all agree on that. But yet, you got a page here, bear with me, I had hand surgery, it's not working so good. Oh, okay, here it is on this next page. 70 and the 23, the 23 and whatever. For a total of 93 chairs. How does 90 go to 23? That math doesn't equate to me. That type of math there is what's getting Donald Trump in trouble because he's inflating his value. This 70 to 93, there's a 23 number difference. Doesn't make sense to me. And when you do it that way, that all changes your calculations here for what people are paying. If you do it the right way, the 2/3 comes up to completely different numbers than the 93. It comes up to 18,696 and some change. I'm dropping all the change for the 23 lots. That'll come up to $1,869 for 10 years. The people on the concrete is $4,474, $457. Quite a bit of difference between them numbers and the numbers that are on this piece of paper. Big difference. I don't know how you can come up with them numbers. That boggles my mind, how you can come up from 70 to 93. The other thing I'd like to know, and I don't know if you'll do this, but by a show of hands, I'd like to know how many of you people have walked that subdivision to see how bad the concrete is. Or if you're just guessing. I walked it the other day, I lived there, and as a conservative estimate, I would say that 50% of that road would have to be replaced. I don't think you have that amount of money. The other thing is, if you go over budget on the asphalt, are you going to steal that money from the concrete? Money, you know what I mean? If you got X amount of dollars allocated for asphalt and it comes up 15% above that, but the concrete money, you still got money left. Are you going to take that and put it there so that the people on the concrete lose even more? I'd like an answer on that, too.
Thank you.
Hi, Sue Wittroba, resident. I live on North Plum. I've got a couple questions. First of all, I'm concerned about I personally feel that the concrete people shouldn't even be part of this. And last meeting, a resident said, he's in the first phase, that we should all pay the same because we use the road. Well, a few people that live there remember when our sub only had one way in and out on South River. When they opened up the back of the sub, it was like a freeway every day. Everybody in the township was cutting through. So we're not the only ones that use the road just because we live there. So that's another point. But the other point I want to make is the concrete itself. We're going to be paying 6 or 7 grand, us concrete people. When this concrete, I'm confused. First of all, I was told it's not bad. I think the supervisor said that. He's being quoted in here. That it says, if anybody in the sub thinks that the concrete is so bad that it needs to be replaced, that's silly. But then in the paper, we have the notice of intention that says, the existing concrete pavement is in poor condition with a lot of cracking and faulting evident. I see cracking everywhere, but it's just cracks. So this is the thing, if in a few more years, and we have to replace the concrete, we've already put 7 grand in to help out the other people, are they gonna help us out when we have to have our concrete replaced? And who's gonna pay for the drainage? We've got all our drainage done. A lot of them don't. I don't know what they've done with their culverts, but if they did it illegally without a permit, I don't know. But I don't feel I should have to pay for that. So is that going to be lumped in as a 2-to-1 ratio with their drainage thing? So I'd like that addressed. I'm curious about that. And that's all I have to say.
Good evening. Dennis Damask, 28300 East Blum. First point, partially already said, Public Improvement Act 188 states that the petition should have been done based on total frontage. What gave the original petitioners the right to bypass this requirement? Just a question. These are all questions. Second, the costs given in the petition per lot are without drainage improvements, and that caused a lot of confusion at the last meeting. The cost with drainage improvements per wade trim is much higher. Are we to assume that the county grant is going to cover the $423,000 difference? Can we be sure of that? Number 3, if not, what is the max each share could end up costing? How bad could this get? Wade trim estimate never mentions East Blum. The notices in the journal never mention East Blum. There are 6 of us that have addresses on East Blum. Are we going to get anything at all? Are we going to be completely left out? Nothing about East Blum anywhere except that we're paying our share. I know several people who would not have signed this petition if all this had been better explained. At the very least, this is leaving a bad feeling and a lot of animosity between some neighbors over how it's been handled. My neighbor across the street I talked to this afternoon said that the only reason he signed the petition, I had said last time about the flooding in my driveway every time it rains that doesn't go away, that I sweep out with a broom at the base of my driveway. He has a situation just as bad as mine, and the corner of the street where east and north come together, whenever it rains hard, the water's about 6 or 8 inches deep down there. The reason Chris said he signed the petition when Mr. Verkest came to his house is because Mr. Verkest told him that this would be repaired. When I pointed out the situation down by me, which is across the street from him, you said you would look at it. Mr. Verkest told Chris this would be repaired. Don't know where the money's coming for that, but anyway. Last, if you can manage to keep the cost per share around $7,000, why are you trying to issue a bond that can go up to $1,093,000, which would actually come out to a cost per share of $11,753? If you are going to go out for a bond and you are going to keep the cost at around $660, $670, whatever it said in the petition, why isn't the bond for that amount? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Brian Borkowitz. I live on Cloverleaf Street. I'm on the blacktop side, so I think everybody that just spoke are on the concrete side. So I was here last meeting, and I'm not sure if I had a question or, my question is, the argument is that we're talking about a street that everybody lives on, whether it's blacktop or concrete. And the part I don't understand is why certain ones are getting penalized for living on blacktop that are paying twice as much as the people on the concrete, when the people on the concrete side are the ones that basically passed this petition because they were paying less, and there were more of them. There was a bigger percentage of the concrete people. I think it was, 1/3 of the blacktop people and 2/3 are on the concrete. So of course it's going to pass because they think they're getting a brand new street that's going to get fixed along the whole way. Everybody drives on that street. I don't understand why if the project was going to go through and the road was going to be repaired, why it wasn't divided equally amongst all the residents that drive on that street. Does that sound like that's a good question? I don't understand where that formula came up where we pay twice as much. There's more work that's being done on the blacktop. Again, it's a street that goes all the way through. Maybe the people on this concrete didn't understand the petition like that was said, and they signed it unknowingly, or were talked into signing that petition to think they were going to get a new road on the concrete. I have no idea, but again, I might be just wasting my my air here, but just voicing my opinion. Again, I guess the main question is where did that formula come? Why are the residents on the blacktop, the lower percentage, paying more, twice as much? Again, I don't know where that formula came from, why the 50% more came up. Probably just wasting my breath, but thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Senstock, 31698 San Juan. I do not live in this area, but I can understand the people's concerns, real concerns. I've talked to a couple of them in the area, and I think they're getting a raw deal. And especially the ones that are paying double everybody else's. Along that line, if I recall, I read the notice in the paper, and if is tonight one of the nights where the people can indicate they're opposed to this, and then that would give them the chance to move into the tax, whatever they call it, tax tribunal. Is that tonight? That's one question. And the other question is, if in fact, people that are here tonight that complained or are complaining, I think they should make sure that they tell you that they do not support this tonight, because I heard most of them say they were asking questions, and I can just picture somebody saying, oh, well, all you did was ask questions. You didn't say you were opposed to it. So anybody that talked tonight, if you're opposed to this, make sure you get back up here and tell them you're opposed to it to make sure. I don't know what happened at the last meeting and so on. Thirdly, in reading that notice in the paper, it said something about the fact that it's, the people could go out and petition. So the question I have is, what is the total number of signatures they'd need to get a petition to put this up to a vote? And is that a township-wide percentage? Is that a street percentage, or where they're at? So I'd like to see that question answered for everybody too, because I'll tell you what, if I was living on the street, I'd be running, I'd get the petition going. It's kind of bad what's going on here, and I'm sure a lot of people are feeling kind of beat down. I understand there's been a couple public hearings or meetings on this issue, but I think there's something smelling in Denmark, or Harrison Township, whatever you want to call it. Thank you.
Thank you. any other public comment? Any other public comment? Hearing none, I'd be looking for a motion to close public comment at 7:36 PM.
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there support?
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mrs. Rose to close the public hearing. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none and seeing no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mr. Backens?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Brado is excused. Mr. Olgiati is excused. Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Witt, yes. Mr. Bertust?
Yes. So there were a number of things stated, and there were a number of questions asked, so I'll do my best to try to reply. The first speaker, I understand that he mentioned several things. I really don't know that there was a question that he asked, and while I don't agree with everything he said, the fact is, there was no question asked. Mr. Wood asked how many of us have walked the street. I can't speak for anyone else, but I've lived on the street for 33 years, so I feel pretty comfortable. I've walked it, biked it, driven it for a long time. The question was also asked, if the project goes over on asphalt, will we steal from concrete? At this point, I really can't answer. I can't say steal from concrete. No, we don't steal. Will we do our best to make sure that the project happens under budget? Yes, the law requires that. If we move forward with a special assessment district and the cost of the project exceeds the costs that were advertised during the petition process, the law prevents us from moving forward without getting additional approvals. We haven't experienced that very much, but I know 1 year, and I'm going by memory here, 3 or 4 years ago when we experienced some rapid inflation in the construction industry, there were projects that we had circulated petitions on. We didn't circulate petitions, that residents circulated petitions on. And when the costs came in, we were not able to move forward because the costs had gone up. We do include contingencies, but, do we steal from one project to another? No. Do we try to allocate the funds as necessary to get the project done? Yes. Although I heard a lot of folks that were opposed, the fact is a majority of folks on that street signed a petition saying they were in favor of it. So we do our best to try to make the project move forward. The question was, is the concrete bad? My neighbor across the street had asked, is the concrete bad? Well, I suppose all of these things are relative. There is no specific number. It isn't as if I'm going to give you a specific piece of data to say the road is this or that. If you go see your doctor and the doctor says, well, this is what your cholesterol is, it's something we can measure. Is the concrete bad? I suppose that's a matter of opinion. Is the concrete as bad as the asphalt? I think most any reasonable person could drive that neighborhood and say, no, clearly asphalt is in much, much worse shape. The drainage problems, although we have drainage problems on the concrete portion, they pale in comparison to the drainage problems on the asphalt portion. The amount of failure on the asphalt is well in excess of the failure on the concrete. So I don't know that I'm qualified to say what road is good or bad, but I think I'm comfortable in saying that the asphalt section of that neighborhood is much, much worse and in definite need of repair. And we'll go back to the very basic part of this. We tried to be creative to come up with a way of fixing that road. We realized that if the entire cost of fixing the asphalt fell only on the folks who live on the asphalt, the project would be too expensive. So I spoke with some folks who approached me saying, I've talked to the attorney, and we're contemplating an idea where we split this up into shares, recognizing that the folks on the concrete do benefit from the asphalt, but they don't benefit as much as the people who live directly on the asphalt. So driving past an area that has poor drainage is not the same as having a flooded area in front of my home. So we said, we can try it, and we can see what the residents think. The reality is the majority of residents thought that was a fair way to divide the cost, and they signed that petition, which allows the project to go forward. Doesn't mean you agree with it, doesn't mean you think it's right. Maybe it should be all one side, all the other side should be split evenly. We didn't circulate the petitions that way. We circulated them with the 2-to-1 ratio, and a majority of the folks in that neighborhood felt that it was fair. Is drainage included? Yes. It is a requirement of the grant that we do substantial drainage improvements. The county's subdivision reconstruction program is covering the asphalt portion. That's a 50/50, and it requires that the drainage be substantially improved. This concrete portion didn't qualify for that initial grant, but I was able to go back to the county and get 60/40 on that. So the district is paying 60% of the cost of the repairs on the asphalt. The county is picking up 40%. The drainage in the concrete, although there are certainly areas that need drainage, clearly it doesn't match the problems on the asphalt. So right now, the scope of work doesn't include any significant drainage issues on the concrete. Dennis, you'd asked, why did we not follow PA 188? So two different acts here, and I don't want to practice law, but the act that dictates how we collect signatures, or how someone collects signatures, and how we weight those signatures, says it has to be by front footage. That's the law. The law doesn't say that the costs need to be divided by front footage, but if you're signing a petition and you have 100 feet of frontage, and your neighbor next to you only has 50 feet of frontage, your signature counts for twice as much. That's what PA 188 says. But it doesn't say that the costs have to be divided that way. Later, or somewhere else in our Michigan compiled laws, SADs have to be divided, the cost has to be divided in a fair and equitable manner. So that's open to some interpretation. So we did follow PA 188. I've got a note, without drainage is county included. So we did circulate the petition the same way we circulated petitions for roughly the past 10 years, or I should say we helped prepare petitions and the residents circulated petitions the same way. And our recommendation, and it's ultimately up to the residents, but our recommendation is, and our experience has shown us that adding drainage to a project typically doubles the cost. So we look at what is the cost for just the road repair, and we circulate the petition, or we encourage residents to circulate petition on just the cost of the road repair. Getting enough signatures allows us to apply for the grant. In some neighborhoods, folks say, we really don't care if we don't get the grant, don't do the drainage, we just want our road repaved. In this particular district and in this project, having circulated a majority or collected a majority of the signatures, the folks that I talked to made it pretty clear to me that if we don't get the grant, we don't want to move forward because without fixing the drainage on the asphalt sections of North Plum and Cloverleaf, it's a waste of time to repave the road. So the petitions did not include that cost, but the reality is we recognize that the cost shown on that petition is reflective of the true cost if we get the grant and include the drainage work. Is East Blum included? Yes. Although we talk about this, we have a name for this project, North Blum and Cloverleaf. The specific notices that go out list all the lots. So it includes, so for example, Mr. Azar is on the corner. His address isn't North Blum, but his address and parcel number is included in this project. The remainder, I believe all the rest of the lots other than his are specifically a part of the subdivision. But yes, East Blum is included. I can't really answer the question about issuing the bonds for over $1 million. I don't really know if I understand that.
Bond counsel put the number there as the total project estimated cost. And they said that way it just gives you that flexibility, but our hands are still tied by the special assessment for the amount that we're levying against the residents.
Right. In other words, regardless of how much we bond for, we can't spend. So there's two sources of funds for this project. One is the county, that's their matching funds. The other is the residents that are named in the notice, that basically the neighbors in this neighborhood. Regardless of what we advertise as a bonded amount, we can't spend more than the amount that was approved unless we as a township board agreed to put money in. And we haven't done that, as far as I know, for any road repaving project as long as I've been supervisor. Mr. Borkowitz had said his argument was everyone lives on the street. We don't understand why it wasn't divided equally. That's certainly one way that it could have been split up as as a over 33-year resident on that street, and having served in my 14th year as supervisor, I didn't believe if we split the costs equally that the project would move forward. But in the end, I mean, there's folks on the concrete that said, I don't understand. We've heard it. We've heard folks saying it should be all paid for by the folks on the asphalt. We've heard folks say it should be shared equally. I mean, that's the nature of an SAD. We're trying to get to that point where what we propose and what circulates on the petition is that middle ground that gets enough people willing to say, yes, I'm willing to do it. So you're no doubt not the only person who said this should be split up differently. But if you circulate a petition and say this is how the costs are going to be split up, people sign or don't sign based on that, and the project moves forward according to the way the petition was circulated. Hang on. Mr. Senstock had said, is tonight when people can reserve the right to appeal? I thought that was the previous meeting.
That was our previous public hearing.
So we did announce at our last public hearing, and I don't remember if it was literally 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, but that meeting was the time that people can speak for or against in order to maintain their opportunity to appeal. And what is the total number of petitions needed to oppose? So you and someone else mentioned something about.
And I think there are two separate questions about the petitions.
Okay.
So if I'm
Yeah.
based on the first gentleman's comments, I believe he's referring to the 20% for a special assessment district. So special assessment districts are created in one of two ways. Either the board comes out and says, we're making you do this, and then at that point, the residents have a chance to collect 20% signatures of the area to put a stop on the project until over 50% of the residents sign in favor of it. So that's the petition process. The way we approach road special assessments is that we don't move forward with them at all until we already have that over 50% to basically say, yes, we already have the buy-in of the residents. The second resident that spoke to petitions, referencing the notice in the paper, anytime that a community issues bonds, there is a right of referendum on the issuance of the bond. So under the law, they can, if they collect signatures of 10% of the registered electors in Harrison Township, so 2,100 and change, that would force the question of whether or not we issue the bond into a special or regular election to decide whether or not that bond is issued.
And the theory there being that when we bond, that bond is ultimately payable by the entire township. The obligation is the township. We recognize that we have the ability through a successful SAD to collect the amount necessary to pay the bond from this. But the point being is if we say we're going to borrow, Jim, in your neighborhood, I believe we bonded for the Venice Shores district. So that bond payment and that obligation falls on the entire township. But we move forward with it because we recognize that the folks in Venice Shores, similar to this project, collected sufficient signatures and said we're moving forward. Did everybody in the Venice Shores subdivision sign in favor of the SAD? No, but a majority did, and 2 years ago, we repaved all the roads in your neighborhood based on that. But that ability to say, we don't want a bond, that burden of a bond based on the entire township of Harrison, I think is what Mr. Witt was referring to as far as the ability to collect signatures saying we're opposed to a bond. Best I can understand. So those were the questions that I had. Next on our agenda, there will be a time later for public comment, and you know that, but we're not going to engage in back and forth. It's not how it works, sorry. Next on the agenda, item D2, and we will open up the floor for public comment at that time, regarding resolution number 5 for the same project. Mr. Witt?
Yes, resolution number 5 confirms the special assessment. Resolution number 5 for Cloverleaf and North Blum Drive. This would confirm the role as it's prepared, which is saying this is how the costs are split. And then it adopts the terms by which the township treasurer shall collect the SAD from the residents. Because the project is in part financed by a bond sale, we have to take a prepayment opportunity prior to us actually selling the bond, so we don't over-finance the project. It can help limit interest costs for residents. So it sort of lays out that time frame when we would do that. This is always subject to change based on timing of work, timing of the bond. So sometimes we'll come back and revise these just to correct those or to get a date that more lines up with what we've experienced. But basically, roughly what we've seen in the past is that if we would approve it tonight, we would have, residents would get a bill sometime in the beginning of the summer, have until some point in July to pay that prior to the project starting bearing interest, and then the bond would be sold after that to cover the cost remaining for the special assessment district.
Okay. So we'd be looking for a motion to adopt Resolution 5 for the Cloverleaf Street and North Plum Drive paving special assessment district as presented. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there support?
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Tominello. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, we'll open up the floor for public comment.
Bill Serville, resident. First, two comments about the discussion that Mr. Verkest had. The difference between Phase 1 and Phase 2 is that Phase 1 is considered end of life. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that the law says that the county isn't supposed to spend any money on an end-of-life road. I don't know how this has happened with the drainage, including the drainage grant, but at any rate, the opposite could happen. These people had an asphalt road, they're getting an asphalt road back. If the concrete portion was so bad that it would need to be completely replaced, then the cost would be probably 3 times as much as what the asphalt's gonna cost. And would they think that'd be fair if they had to, if they had to pay extra to support that? So, but, there's something that I thought someone else was gonna bring up. So I didn't include it in my speech, but the petitions were circulated in September of '23. In August 23rd, there is a memorandum that Wade Trim put out that I assume people had access to. I got a hold of one, and it says what it's going to cost, and it's $1,068,000 is what they say the total cost with drainage. But yet, that was available, but yet the petition was circulated with the no drainage number, which is $647,000 and change. So therefore, I believe that you've already exceeded the 10% limit, and that should put a brake on the whole thing. It was false advertising. You were telling these people it was going to cost $647,000 when the number was already out there for $1 million. I believe it was $68,000. Now the current number is $1,093,000. It's a revised number. So, what is it? Thank you.
Thank you.
Lloydwood, 28329 East Plum. A couple things that I brought up that weren't addressed. Number one, about the numbers, how 70 goes to 93. I didn't get an explanation on that. I think that should be answered. Okay? And it really is a shame that you've pitted one side of that neighborhood against the other with this. You knew you wouldn't get it passed on the asphalt side. You had 23 people, only 8 people signed it. Right then and there, you should have stopped the petitions. Because what you did, you are forcing those people into paying to have theirs fixed when they didn't want it to begin with. That's a shame. That's shame on you guys. I'm sorry, but it is. And when you guys go to make your final vote here, I don't think Ken Verskes should have a say in it. He lives in the neighborhood, he can sign all the petition he wants, but he shouldn't have a say in the passage. He should recuse himself from voting on that. I don't know if he can or not, that would probably be the attorney's decision, but I don't think he should vote on it. And I like Ken, but I don't think he should vote on it.
Hi, Sue Wetruba, resident. I just got another question. Ken, you keep bringing it up, that this project would have never gone through if the concrete was not included. So what would have the price been for the asphalt people? And you have pitted neighbors against neighbor. I think the whole thing stinks. I'm sorry, you can quote me, put it in the paper. I think it stinks. And you should have had them separate. There'd be no qualm. This gentleman thinks we should pay for his road. He's getting a whole new road. We're gonna get cracks filled, maybe? You shouldn't have never done this. I think it's horrible. Keep it separate. It should have been separate, and then everyone would say, well, yeah, that's what it cost. And now there's too many questions. And why, so in other words, you said it wouldn't have gone through because the asphalt's too expensive. Well, then, what was I gonna say? So therefore, we are the sacrificial lambs, the concrete people. We have to make up the difference then. And so to appease us, you're gonna fill in a few cracks. That's how I see it. I mean, I can't see it any other way. And also, when we become, the concrete gets too bad, and we have to have this replaced, are they gonna pay for it too? Because they use the road? You know, that's a weak argument, but questions?
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll close the floor for public comment and move back to board comment. Mr. Serville, you had stated phase one is at the end of life and the law says the county cannot spend any money. That is not true. The law says that the county cannot spend more than 50% of the cost to rebuild a local road. So they can participate in the cost. You'd asked, would the asphalt people pay for concrete? I don't know. We didn't circulate that petition. I can't look into the future. Don't have a crystal ball. If and when that time comes, and we look at the costs, and we look at what programs are available from the county, we can address that. But right now, we move forward with the project based on several factors, based on what current funding is available at the county level and what options are available to us. As much as there are people on any of these streets that we've done who say, I'm opposed to it, the fact remains, there's folks who come in and say, what are we going to do with this road? This is ridiculous. How come you're not making someone pay for it? So it's Groundhog Day all over again. We go through the process and explain to folks, it's a county road, it's not a township road. The county cannot pay more than 50%. The township proposed a road millage roughly 10 years ago. It failed. And as I've said before, since then, dozens of streets have done SADs. So every time 20, 30, 50 homes decide to pay for their own street, that's 20, 30, 50 voters or 50 families of voters that aren't going to vote for a road millage. So the road millage option was floated, it was shot down. This is the only option. So when folks come to me, regardless of whether I happen to live there or not, understand, we've been doing this project, this process for, I don't know, roughly 6 years, done maybe a dozen roads through there. I'm shooting from the hip. My road wasn't the first one. This one was a little bit trickier, but we tried to pursue that. Mr. Serville, you had mentioned that the project was a little over $1 million, but without the drainage, it's 647. Again, that reinforces exactly what I was saying earlier. If we take the cost of 647 and we advertise that cost to the residents and say, this is what the cost is, but the project actually comes in and is approved at 1 million and the county's going to pay roughly half of it, we're pretty safe that we're under. So we circulated the petition based on the concept that 647 was our target. And We know now, because of matching funds, it should be less than that. So we have some reassurance that the project should come in well under the amount. The law says, if we tell you it's 6,900 and change, we gotta hit that 6,900 and change within 10%. If we're more than 10% over, we can't move forward. So we try to aim high with the hopes that the project will come in lower. Lloyd, you'd asked the question, and I apologize for not answering that. 70 goes to 93. This is simple. We've got 47 on asphalt, we've got 47 on concrete, 23 on asphalt. Added up, they're 70. But since every asphalt share pays 2, we're adding another 23. We're taking 23 times 2 plus 47. You can shake your head, I'm just telling you that's how we did it.
That is how you do it here. If you go back to eighth grade or grade school math, that's not how you do it, 2/3, 1/3. I don't know how you're doing it.
No.
That's not right.
Yep, and I'm sorry. What I'm saying is, when we say everybody has to pay either one share or 2 shares, there's 70 properties, 47 pay 1 share, 23 pay 2 shares. This is not 1/3, 2/3. This is simply stated, 47 people are paying 1 share. 23 is 2 shares. 23 times 2 plus the 47 gets you to 93. That's the explanation. I don't want to engage in a banter. I'm just answering your question.
When this started, I see where you're trying to come from, but that's not how it was explained originally.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep, again, you said, yeah, no, we're not engaging in a back and forth. We open for public comment. I'm trying to be respectful, but it's not how it works. It's a shame that we pitted one side against the other. Nobody's pitting anyone against anybody. I don't really inherently like the person who lives next door to me any more than I like the person who lives 5 doors down on the asphalt. We tried to come up with what we thought was the most creative and universally acceptable way to get the project done. We circulated the petitions that way. If people like it, they sign it. If they don't like it, they don't sign it. If a majority sign it, the project moves forward. This is my response to my neighbors, and it's the same response that I've had to people who are my neighbors on other streets, saying, this is how we can get the project done. We prepared the petitions. I'm sitting in a unique situation because I not only played the role here at the board, but I circulated petitions as a resident. I believe it's fair, which is the reason why I circulated them, and apparently a majority felt it was the same way. But someone said, shame on this board. It's been the practice of this board whereby if a majority of people in any street or any district say, we want this, we sit here several times a year and listen to the people that don't want it, but we move forward based on that majority. There were 2 projects that were scheduled for 2024. Both had a majority of signatures, but we found that a number of people came forward on another project and said, I'm opposed to it. We listened to that will of those people, and we moved back on that. So it isn't a board decision. The decision to circulate petitions and the actual collection of petitions is up to the residents. Lloyd, you'd mentioned that I should not have a say. I'd need to recuse myself. I know we've done previous SADs that affected board members, and we've never had anyone recuse themselves. I'm not sure that I could.
I don't see how you could. Under the Charter Township Act, you're required to vote on every issue unless there's a strange set of circumstances that don't exist here. And that would even require unanimous board approval not to vote, so you're required to vote.
And so the question, and then last, Sue, you'd asked, this wouldn't have gone through, what would the price have been if we did something a different way? I can't live in hypotheticals. There's probably 3 or 4 ways, I'm sorry. There's probably 3 or 4 different ways that this SAD could have been formed. So when a number of people in that neighborhood said, we'd like to get this done, literally coming to meetings here, approaching the clerk's office, talking to me personally, we said, let's try to figure out a way to get it done. We designed the cost breakdown the way we thought was the most fair. We circulated the petitions that way. What would the cost have been if it had been done X or Y or Z? I don't know, because we didn't ask the engineer to prepare those costs. Could we somehow come up with that? Yeah, but what's the fruit? We're not changing what this is. We've got a project that's moving forward. A majority of people approved it. Good news, we were approved for 2 grants to help the cost be as low as possible. It's the only way this project is ever gonna get done. So. All right, we've got a motion with support to adopt resolution number 5 for the Cloverleaf Street and North Blum Drive paving special assessment district as presented. Any further comment, board members? Hearing none, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mr. Batkins?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Brado is excused. Mr. Olgiati is excused. Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Witt, yes. Mr. Verkowski?
Yes. Thank you, board. And thank you to the residents that spoke their piece. Next on the agenda is item D3 regarding the Archer and Lakeshore and Riverdale and Powers Canals sediment and aquatic weeds removal special assessment district number 1.
Agenda jumped when I was about to get on there. Yep. So the residents of the Archer and Lakeshore and then the Riverdale and Powers Canals have collected signatures of over 51% of the frontage petitioning to create a special assessment district to fund for canal sediment and aquatic weed removal. The first resolution here is confirming that we have received sufficient signatures and that we will begin the special assessment process for this project.
Make a motion to adopt the foregoing resolution number 1 for the Archer and Lakeshore and Riverdale and Powers Canal sediment and aquatic weeds removal special assessment district.
All right, is there support? Support. Got a motion by Mrs. Rose with support by Mr. Batkins. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Batkins?
Yes.
Mr. Brado is excused. Mr. Olgiati is excused. Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Witt? Yes. Mr. Verkowski?
Yes. Thank you, board. Next on the same subject, item D4, Archer and Lakeshore and Riverdale and Powers Canals sediment and aquatic weeds removal special assessment district resolution number 2. Mr. Witt?
Yes, the special assessment resolution number 2 will be setting our public hearing for the public hearing of necessity. We are proposing that we hold that at our Monday, March 25th, 2024 regular board meeting. Residents will be provided a notice by first-class mail as well as 2 published notices in the paper. The first public hearing, again, is for the board to hear objections to the project and as well as preserve an individual's opportunity to protest the assessment to the state treasurer.
All right, discussion, or is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there support? Support. Okay, we've got a motion by Mrs. Rose, a support by Mr. Badkins to adopt resolution number 2 for the Archer and Lakeshore and Riverdale and Powers Canals sediment and aquatic weeds removal special assessment district. Discussion, board members. Hearing none and seeing no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Batkins?
Yes.
Mr. Brado is excused. Mr. Olgiati is excused. Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Witt? Yes. Mr. Verkowski?
Yes. Okay. Next on our agenda, item E1 from the fire department. Board members, chief tells us he is seeking approval to purchase 22 lengths of hose, 50 feet in length, 1.75 inches in diameter, North American polyflow hose to replace hose that did not pass the last inspection and to replenish our required hose reserve. In the board packet is an invoice, so the cost is, the proposed motion is to approve the purchase of 22 new fire hoses at a cost of $4,422.
I'll make that motion.
Is there support?
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Tominello. Discussion, board.
I noticed one of them is red and all the others are blue. Is there any reason for that?
You know, the short answer is I can't tell you. The longer answer is I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's the terminal, you know, the first hose, the last hose. So when they pull hose, it could be, you know, depending on where a hydrant is, depending on where the truck is. So I can only imagine that maybe the first hose they use is red and then everyone is after that is a different color or vice versa.
Okay.
But I don't know. Any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, board. Next on the agenda, item F1 from our finance department.
Yes. On our September 26, 2022 board, approved a contract with Raymond for audit services and approved the schedule of audit fees for the years 2022 through 2024 with some optional renewals. Before the audit of our previous year begins, the auditing firm issues an engagement letter for the finance director to sign. Included in the 2023 engagement letter is an additional fee related to the implementation of a new accounting standard, GASB 96. It has been the past practice of the township to engage with our auditors on implementation of these new standards. This fee is to not to exceed $7,000. Also attached for approval is the engagement letter for an alternative compliance examination engagement for the ARPA funds at a cost of $5,900. Last year, the board paid $5,500 for this examination. This should be our last engagement or will be our last engagement for that alternative compliance examination because of the way our ARPA funds have been moved into the general fund.
And really that ACEE, this alternative, is, it's really anytime we have federal funds over a certain threshold?
Well, they created a different way of doing it as opposed to the standard single audit that you have to do if you spend over $750,000.
Which is even more, right?
Yes, in federal funds, you have to go a much more thorough audit. They created this ACEE to allow for communities to be able to do some additional reporting to meet the federal requirements, but without going through all the hoops, because all of a sudden they had thousands and thousands of communities that were going to stumble across this threshold and, added costs.
So, yes, so this alternative engagement is specific to ARPA, so we will never have one, but it is possible that we could have to do a single audit in the future if we had a large enough federal grant.
It could happen when we run into the Prentice Pump Station with the defense.
Correct.
That's a likely possibility there.
Yeah, who knows, it's DOD,
Well,
so there
you
could be an exemption.
and then you tie it with, depending on if we get a CDBG allocation
Sure.
that tags on, so
Yep.
it's additive, it's not single project.
Yep, but both of these are one-time costs associated with a new accounting standard and an alternative engagement. But chances are, in the next 2 to 5 years, we're gonna have another GASB standard and we'll have to do something, and we could have a single audit in the future.
Yeah,
So
and
in other words, this isn't the craziest thing. We've had to pay these fees in the past.
Yeah, and usually we'll pay the first time, and then going forward, we'll understand the process and be able to implement it ourselves. so.
Correct. Okay. Any discussion, or is there a motion to authorize the finance director to sign the audit engagement letter and the alternative compliance examination engagement letter?
I'll make that motion.
All right. Is there support? Support. Got a motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Badkins. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next on our agenda, item G1 regarding the liability insurance coverage.
Yes, attached is a renewal proposal from the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Association, our commercial liability insurance provider. The price for renewal is $166,672, actually a $1,988 decrease over last year. The pooled nature of MMRMA allows for distributions of any excess funds each year. So what they do is they do basically, an audit of their money that they have sitting there to cover any expenses, and anything that's excess, they refund back to members based on the size of your premium as well as how long you've been a member. Last year, the township received $49,354. So really, you're bringing our cost down almost $50,000. And the amount that they approved for the next year's distribution is actually a larger amount than across the entire system than it was the previous year. So we expect to see another, a sizable amount of our premium returned to us. The township has received excellent service through MMRMA during our time as members. We're recommending that the policy be renewed. I will say, I had hoped to be able to get competitive quotes, work towards it at the end of the year, but really the different companies have changed a lot of their requirements. It used to be able to put out a 2-page thing, say, here's where we are, here's who we are, and you would get pricing back. They've really changed a lot of that, and they were looking for hours and hours of time for each of those quotes to get the pricing back for them. They wanted you to fill out their forms, and they're pretty substantial. I know Mr. Verkes does the form that we have to do for MMRMA every year, and it's hours of your time each time.
It's I mean, you don't necessarily always have the opportunity to just sit down and work on something uninterrupted. But yeah, there's a whole census that we have to complete. They have questions about, different areas each year. Bottom line, Adam began the process. It became clear that with the changes to elections and the additional work necessary, we would not have been able to have any legitimate proposals within the time frame. So, we had, the last time we talked about our renewal with MMRMA, we had talked about saying, let's renew it, and this cycle, we would, and we began that process. We notified MMRMA that we were going out for quotes, but the process did change. The process of soliciting bids did change substantially since the last time we went for bids. You know, this is probably, we've probably been with MMRMA for maybe 8 years, if I'm shooting from the hip.
About that.
Yeah, so the lay of the liability carriers have changed. So this is a renewal for 1 year or 2 years. The language shows 2 years. The issue is, and I think, I'm not gonna speak for Adam, but I think we would wanna know whether or not the board would want to look at 1 year or two year on the renewal.
And we're good, it's fine either way. I mean, I'm happy with the product. I think it's a good price compared to what I know other communities pay based on seeing their bids come in. But knowing the expectation of work is understood much better for what we would have to do if we would need to go out for bid at the end of this year. And so whatever the board's decision is.
I might even toss this out. I guess when I look at the load that falls in the clerk's office, it may be easier a year from now during an off-election cycle to invest this time as opposed to going 2 years and being in a governor election or a more busy cycle. I'm tossing it out, so I don't know if that makes a difference to you or not.
If I know the expectation, I can plan for it. And the expectation had changed, so.
So even if so the idea being, I guess. The
1 year's fine, 2 years fine.
If we went
whatever
2
the board
years,
wants.
you know that in March of '25, we'd be renewing, and summer of '25, you begin the process to solicit bids for
Yes.
March of '26.
Yes.
So, it's really up to the board if we, and we typically renew annually, right? I mean, we typically come back to the board, or
Correct.
have we done, yeah, so this request is for 1 year, but I think there'd be value in knowing whether or not the board is comfortable in ultimately, for planning purposes, to renew, because it is a 2-year offer.
What's the advantage? You're gonna lock in this cost? The cost won't increase?
Well, it's,
That is
so let's just
part
say
of it,
this.
is they are guaranteeing that their rate won't increase beyond a certain threshold.
Right, but in addition, it isn't as if we're gonna go out with this, the longer you're a member, the better your benefit is. And this is a pooled benefit, I would say a majority of our peers, but not everybody, is with MMRMA. So it is kind of an exercise. Frankly, my expectation would have been, had we gone through that process, we would have probably come back with a recommendation to stay with MMRMA because of the time we've been members. So I don't feel like going 2 years is exactly running with scissors. There's a good chance we'll be coming back, regardless of when we renew, with a recommendation to stay.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to beat getting 50 grand back on your premium, because even that, if we take that 50 grand off our premium, that's lower than we were paying 10 years ago, 12 years ago.
Right. When we were being sued by our carrier.
Yeah.
Right. Did you have something?
Yeah, I don't usually participate in these discussions, but I just wanted to add, we do work for, I think, maybe 4 of the municipal insurer carriers. MMRA is not one of the ones we do work for. But I can tell you that costs are just really going up for the communities. I've noticed it at attending some different meetings. I'd ask you to consider doing a 2-year. One of the things that's happened recently is the Supreme Court has changed the definition of open and obvious, which is a defense that you have if somebody trips and falls, which I think is going to cause a lot more litigation against the communities. That's going to be reflected in the rates that we pay. If you can lock them in for 2 years, I think it's a good move.
Yeah, I kind of feel like the sidewalk slip and falls are going to be the next Camp Lejeune commercial we're going to see. Unless something changes at the Supreme Court level, right? So,
But we passed our sidewalk ordinance, so we won't have that issue.
yeah, I hope you're right, but
I'm just
my
saying.
instinct tells me
Stay
else.
tuned for closed session.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoops.
Yeah. So, yeah, I agree with Mr. Huth. I think, this is a request for renewal for 1 year, but I would hope that, nobody on this board would be surprised a year from now when we're recommending a second year of renewal with the intent to go out in 2025 for competitive bids. But right now, short of any feedback, that's what we're gonna do, but right now, the proposed motion is to approve the one-year renewal with MMRMA at 166,672.
Well, why wouldn't we make the motion to approve it for 2 years?
I'm okay with that. I'm totally down with that. That's
Was that,
okay.
was that a motion, Mrs. Rose?
That is a motion. I
I'll
make the
support that.
motion that we,
I'll support that motion.
Okay, motion by Mrs. Rose, support by Mr. Tominello. We had some discussion. Any further discussion on the motion?
I just get two things. On the two-year contribution agreement, it says that it may go up, but not more than 5%. So we're not locked in, is that?
Well, we're locked into a 5% max.
The max is 5%, so you're not locking in a specific amount, but our year-over-year went down this
Yeah,
year,
yeah, I
so-
see the amount that we got back. So, okay, so that was my first question. Second question is, on page 117, can you just clarify what that exclusion is?
Which exclusion?
It says the Charter Township of Harrison is afforded all coverages provided by MMRMA except as listed below. Specialized emergency response expense recovery coverage. What is that?
I would have to look at the. I would have to look at the full policy book to understand that one.
that sounds like the police chief, fire chief charging back when they have to go on a call. Isn't that what that sounds like to me?
It does, but I don't know that that's,
Chargeback?
yeah, I don't know that that's what it is. I don't know that I don't know that I'm prepared to give an answer to that.
But I am happy to get an answer from Mr. Potter, our
Yeah,
agent.
I mean,
and-
I'll support it. I just
and
would
email that out
like
to
to
the
be clear
board.
on what
Call.
that is.
Sure.
That's all.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
I looked it up online and there was nothing. I mean,
Yeah, happy to get an answer and
Okay.
share with the board.
apologize I didn't ask for
No,
that
no, that's okay.
before.
Sometimes, and sometimes I'm comfortable sort of guessing based on experience, but insurance has very specific definitions tied to specific words, and so I wouldn't feel comfortable.
It's where my eyes usually go when somebody says you get everything except for.
Yeah,
So,
yep.
All right, got a motion with support for the 2-year renewal. Any further discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
I
Thank
did
you
have
for-
one more quick question, I'm sorry. Is this a one-time payment, or will they spread it out over the 12 months?
It's a one-time payment. And it doesn't, it gets split across our several funds, so it's not a large impact to any one fund per se. So it's,
Yeah, I see the breakouts here.
yeah.
Okay.
And then when we get that rebate or refund, whatever you say, then it's equally spread back out to lower that cost.
And I know Mr. Verkes usually sees those numbers first for that refund, and we always share that with them.
Yeah, I typically forward an email and it is a part of MMRMA and the broker to say, hey, good news, your refund this year is X amount. And it has steadily increased since we've been members.
The pool went up from $29.7 million that they had to distribute last year to $34.4 million for 2024. So with 5 million more, and, we're a member longer, so we could expect more than the 49 that we got for this cycle.
All right. All good with discussion on that item? Okay. Next on the agenda, item H1 regarding salary comparison and proposal. Board members, the last time the Board of Trustees did a salary comparison was in January of 2018. We did adopt a policy in February of 2021 that adjusted the salaries of full-time officials and their deputies based on the inflation rate multiplier. However, the contracts for the employees included raises for the last 2 years that were less than the rate of inflation, and as a result, we approved raises for less than inflation for the 3 full-time officials. Plus, that policy did not include the trustees. Their salaries of the trustees have not been adjusted since 2008. You may recall back in '21 when we proposed indexing salaries to the inflation rate multiplier, it was the will of the trustees that they didn't want to make that change midstream, but that it should be effective the next election cycle. So attached in the board packet is a salary comparison. It shows the information for similar and neighboring townships along with averages. The comparison was completed in 2023. Actually, the data that you have is a subset of the data that the deputy supervisor collected because we were going into negotiations at the end of 2023. So we did a broad salary comparison that included clerical staff members, fire chief, finance director, water and sewer, everybody, because it was a negotiation year. So knowing that it was, this survey was completed in 2023, and many municipalities have a fiscal year that runs the same as the calendar year, some of the salaries have certainly been increased since the study was done. So I am proposing several changes to salaries effective November 20th of 2024. And that would be locked in. They would not have the inflation rate multiplier change on January 1 of 2025. So I'm proposing that the supervisor, clerk, and treasurer salaries be adjusted to $95,000. The trustees be adjusted to $12,000. And I'm proposing, and I had a typo in here, I apologize, that we adjust the salaries of the deputy supervisor, clerk, and treasurer to $71,000 effective immediately, and then on January 1st of 2025 to $76,000. So that's a lot of information. The salary comparison is a lot of information. As you may recall, for electeds, if we adjust salaries, they have to be adjusted by a resolution. So I included sample resolutions, and interested in board feedback, questions or proposals.
I think it's important to share why we're bringing this up today. When we just talked about it, part of it is setting it in time for the filing deadline for these offices, so that individuals that are interested in the positions know what the wages are going to be when they take office. And the filing deadline is April 23rd at 4 p.m., so individuals would have that information when they're interested.
Right, so kind of in line with what the trustees had mentioned when we talked about this 3 years ago, that it should be, that an adjustment to salaries should be made in advance, so that anybody who chooses to run for the office would be aware of that. Would seem less, transparent if we said, okay, well, we're going to adjust salaries the day after an election, as opposed to announcing what they'd be effective the date that all 7 positions begin to serve the next 4-year term. So the November 20th, 2024 effective date is because the November elections, per the Charter Township Act, say that those people elected in the November election begin to serve office November 20th of 2024. So the proposed adjustments would be effective then, and we're talking about them now, as Adam said, so that they're in advance of the filing deadline. And again, that was kind of in line with what the trustees had requested. So discussion, questions, a motion? Most people would tell you that it would be great to be able to set your own salary. The reality is it's a difficult process. And so the salary comparison was our best attempt to try to use data. We chose 2 municipalities in Wayne County, 2 in Macomb. We included an additional, a third in Macomb County, 2 in Oakland, and 2 in Kent County that were similar in size. You can see I've listed the population, the square miles, the taxable value of the various municipalities. And then within that salary study, you might see that I did highlight some in yellow. Those were, so for example, let's see, what's a reference here? Some municipalities have part-time deputies. Some municipalities have so for example, in Gaines Township in Kent County, the supervisor position is part-time. They're at a $46,000 salary. Deputy supervisor is clearly like a township manager, so that's $130,000. So we didn't think that 130,000 was comparable to how our township operated, so the figures that are highlighted in yellow were omitted from the averages. And then I did include data for two neighboring municipalities for as far as their trustees go. You can see in the notes, some of the trustees receive health care in other municipalities, some of the trustees receive retirement benefits, and in some cases, trustees receive per diem or a payment of $100 per meeting, or $125 for one of them, as much as $210 per trustee per meeting. We don't, we have historically not had that payment for our regular board meetings.
So does it require a resolution? Is it for each salary?
For each
Separate?
office, yeah, separate.
Yeah. So there are 4 resolutions in the board packet.
Yep.
Right? So it is possible, the proposed motion would be to adopt those 4 resolutions and then adjust the deputy salaries as noted. But it's up to this board. It can be this amount, it can be another amount, it can be tabled, it can be whatever. It's a proposal. Had some input from different folks, the deputies, the full-timers, and, you know, at some point, you gotta put something on a piece of paper, propose it, and see what folks believe is reasonable or not reasonable.
Well, I don't have any major objection, but could we postpone this to next meeting when maybe all 7 of us are present?
But I don't, I know for a fact that not all 7 of us will be here at our next meeting. And I know the meeting after that, we won't have all 7 of us, you know, I mean,
Okay. I hear you.
The short answer is we
We can
can't
do whatever we
postpone it.
want.
Yeah, we have to, we do not have to take action. The idea behind this was we wanted to take action on this early enough that someone wouldn't say, well, you know, hey, the filing deadline was April 23rd, and then your first meeting in May, you proposed changing the salaries. The feeling that I got 3 years ago when we talked about this was the trustees said, we'd rather talk about this in advance of the election.
Yeah.
So that everybody was aware, so, and even then, when we look at the averages, you know, the proposed salaries are below each of the averages that we're proposing. The difference being with the trustees, the average was about 10,985, but that includes at least half of them either getting a payment per meeting or a retirement benefit or both. And so 12,000 seemed to be a reasonable number. 9,500 hasn't been touched since, when I say 2008, I believe it was 2008. So it's been 16 years since we've adjusted that trustee salary.
I definitely make a motion that we give the trustees a raise, because I know what we do part-time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, we haven't gotten a raise since 2008. It'll go into effect for next year's board.
Is that literally a motion, or you're just
That is my
expressing?
motion,
Okay.
yes.
All right, so we have a motion.
Sorry, I'm
No, it's
giving
okay.
myself a raise if I run again.
No, that's okay. So, so we have a motion to adopt the trustee resolution, increasing the salary of the trustee from 9,500 to 12,000, effective 11/20 of '24. Okay? Is there support?
Support.
Got a motion with support. Discussion? Hearing none, seeing no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call? Come on, Jim, you know how the on-deck chairs work. You mean to tell me you didn't know you were gonna speak on this?
Oh, I knew I was going to speak. Except I'm not going to speak very harshly about the trustees, because I think they do a good job. And I believe that they are entitled to a raise since 2008. But I will, on this particular thing, if you look at the paperwork that's been supplied. It says resolution to establish Harrison Township supervisor's salary on all of them. So make sure you adjust that.
Oh, yeah, I copied, thank you. I copied and pasted, and I missed that.
Yep.
Thank you.
So I'll let that one go. I want the other ones.
Thank you. Rob, as we wait for the next public comment, that type was, so basically copied and pasted these. Having said that, that doesn't preclude us from moving forward with these resolutions,
It does not. The motion should just acknowledge what
what the
position
title
is
is.
for.
Yep, okay, thanks. Yes, sir.
Yeah, C. William Bardell, Clean Cut, Do-Gooder Boy Next Door, clean up, fix up, people helping people. I just want to say, it's very nice to, what was my numbers here? I guess that was I don't know what that was, like a 20% raise or something. I got it written down there. But what I want to say is, being on this board, being a trustee or what have you, I understand you're all Republicans, and I notice who's not here for these controversial issues, whatever excuse you want to make. I know who goes to work every day, and I mean, people can see what's going on, and it's fine. You know, you're Republicans in a Republican neighborhood, that's fine. I'm just a bean counting blue dog Democrat, you know, and I'll run every year, and Ken, you'll have your water department steal all my William Bardell for trustee signs, you know, like they do extra work for you. And that's fine, I'm used to it by now. I just find it odd that we would do these raises and you want a new building out here. And, you know, like I said, I'm going to say it every 4 years. I'm sorry I don't go to your church. Sorry I'm not in your club. Again, I'm a Democrat. I despise laziness. I've worked 3 jobs since I was 8 years old. When I got to be 44, I cut it down to 2 jobs. I hate blight. And you can make all the excuses as you want for it. And it would be nice if everybody did indeed do their job. And I wouldn't really have that much to say about this. But most of the time I say anything to anyone, maybe except Larry recently, I kind of used to like Adam a little bit. But, you know, I get a lot of smoke and mirrors. And I'm not really that young a guy, and I've lived a long time. Like I said, I've been a plumber since I was 8 years old, been doing toilets, worked 3 jobs since I was 44, and still had fun. But I just want to say that it's very peculiar, and you can talk about, I realize I'm helpless, hopeless, helpless, and your lawyer can tell me I'm out of line whenever he wants, and you guys have the last word. I'm just a 27-year resident, you know, clean cut, do-gooder boy next door. I care about the township, and I'll be running every 4 years, and I'll be coming every single meeting just to watch you guys, and do the best I can. And I understand what you're going through. You're all Republicans in a Republican neighborhood, and I know it's tough. You all go to the same church, and I know the 2 guys aren't here today. People aren't here today for whatever reason. Spin it how you want. I think you should have a full board, and I think everyone should be on the record for this. Okay? So it wouldn't be bad if everybody did their job. You know, recently I've been fond of Larry. I used to be a little bit fond of Adam because of his work ethic. You know, so that's my 2 cents. So thank you for listening, and you're going to do whatever you're going to do anyway, but I'll still be here. Like that Johnny Cash song. I'm staying right here. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment. Move back to board comment. Any board comment? Board members?
I just want to get clarity on the deputies. So I think what I heard is that not only proposing a new salary, which I think is well-deserved, I attend a lot of treasury events, and I talk to a lot of the local treasurers, both here in Macomb County and Oakland, and even in the Upper Peninsula and in the Upper Michigan of the Lower Peninsula. And I think our deputies, if we look across the table, are very underpaid. So I just wanted a clarification. You did say that with the resolutions for the deputies, they would get an increase and then they would still be eligible for the 2025 increase.
So
Is that correct?
Yeah, so the motion before us does not include the deputies,
I understand.
right? But the proposal was to increase the salary to 71,000 effective immediately, and then 1/1 of 25, increase it again to 76. So with the wage, when we look at the wage study, we do have an outlier with one of the municipalities that has a really high deputy supervisor, but the range of deputies for 2023 in the municipalities we included goes from a little over 80,000 to a little over 88,000. So that's our range. So, 71, it kind of helps to close the gap. 1/1 of 25, 76, that puts us in that ballpark. That's what I am proposing.
And that does not need a resolution.
That's strictly, that's straight up motion. So we can, it is only the electeds that require a resolution.
Okay, can I go ahead and make that motion?
Well, no, because
Well,
we're
I'm sorry,
still
we haven't
considering a
voted, have we?
motion
I'm
on
sorry.
the trustees. I mean, you can, but not.
No, that's fine. I apologize. We
No,
haven't
it's okay.
voted on the here. I
Yeah.
apologize.
No, that's okay. So any other discussion on the trustee resolution? Hearing none and having already taken public comment, we do have a resolution to increase the salary of the office of Harrison Township trustee to $12,000 annually effective November 20th of 2024. Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Backens?
Yes.
Mr. Brado is excused. Mr. Olgiati is excused. Mr. Witt, yes. Mr. Vertest?
Yes. So, Mr. Tominello, the proposed motion was to adjust the salaries of the deputy supervisor, deputy clerk, and deputy treasurer to 71,000 effective immediately, and again on January 1st of 2025 to 76,000.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so that's deputies.
Support.
We've got a motion by Mr. Tominello with support by Mrs. Rose. Okay. So we've had some discussion. Any discussion, board members? Hearing none, we'll open up the floor for public comment.
Tim Senstock, 31698 CN1. The fact that you want to give the deputies, the three deputies, a big raise, and it is a big raise, it's 24%. I don't know anybody, and that includes the raise come after the first of the year, 24%. Now, the problem with that is that if you look at the Chesterfield, which is right next to us, their rate for those deputies is, well, let's see, one of them's 88, but most of them are one of them 60,000 for the deputy supervisor, 60,500. It seems to me that a 24% increase in the current economy around this township is excessive, very excessive. I recognize the last time you guys did the automatic pay increase or cost of living and stuff, I don't believe those three individuals received anything, but to jump them from $61,202 up to $76,000 is bordering on the ridiculous. And when the people are looking at this, watching this board meeting tonight, they're going to be a little upset, very upset, because it's ridiculous. So I would recommend or ask that you, instead of going to 76,000 or whatever, maybe you just stop at the 71,000 and leave it alone. And make sure they're not eligible for the 9% or whatever you guys gave them last year. It's unbelievable, 24%. Think about that.
C. William Bardell, 27-year resident. Again, see how you're going at this. You're going at this from the deputies now, okay? And then you the three, well, two of the three full-timers, 2 2/3, let's say, of the full-timers, you want 11.3, and you're giving the deputy 76. So then you guys can get your 11.3. I mean, again, we're not that young. You've been around. You kind of know what's going on. Our township has 8 square usable miles. We have Selfridge. We have the 155 acres that you guys wanted to pillage, or our supervisor wanted to pillage and put an antenna out there. And we're watching all this. We see it all. We see what's going on. And, like they say on some of those commercials, that's a smooth move, 76. And we can do 5th grade shop math, or 8th grade shop math, whatever you want to call it. You would divide 61 into 76, right? And move your decimal point, right? That's how you get your percentage, right? And you'd minus that by 100, right? It's not really that hard to do. So I see going at this from the underpins, okay? So you can get your 11.3. Again, we have a small township. You guys want your big 11.3 raise. You want a new building here. We got a small town here. We got 8 square usable miles. The rest, again, is our beach, our 155 acres, and Selfridge. That's what we got. I would say give the deputies 8%. You 3 get 4%. You got deputies. Okay? Again, we see what's going on. It's obvious. We see what's going on. You can say it's after the elections. Again, most of the people running against you aren't at your church. I might be Democrats. They might not be in your club. You don't have a full board. I see who's here, who's not here to vote on these controversial issues. Were these two people the lower vote getters? Is that why they're not here? You guys got the highest votes, so you're going to vote on these? We see what's going on. You have a chance to redeem yourself now, so do some damage control, clean this mess up, because it is a mess. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Seeing no further public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment, move back to board comment. Bit of clarification, the numbers that we see within this salary comparison were as of 2023. As I explained, we were going into negotiations, so when we looked at the salary comparison, the actual full salary study we did covered many more positions. This is a subset of those that we're talking about here. The current salary for the deputies is 64,262. The 71,000 would be a proposed 10.4% increase for reference, not 24%. So current salary of all 3 deputy supervisors is 64,262. Increasing them to 71 would be 10.4 increase. So, any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. So we've covered the trustees, we've covered the deputies. Is there any discussion, or is anyone willing to share their thoughts on the 3 full-time positions?
These don't take effect until after the next election.
So it would be, yep, whoever fills the offices of all 7 positions is the way the resolutions are written.
I make a motion that we postpone approval of the 3 full-time.
You don't have to make a postpone.
Oh,
Nobody makes a
okay.
meeting.
We can.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
can, but I mean, in other words, I don't mean that to interrupt you. What I mean to
No,
say
that's
is
fine.
if that's the will, and that's what, you know, like we've generally been able to come to an agreement on these things, and I'm not saying that I'm opposed to that. But if we don't take action, we don't really have to take a motion.
Right, I just don't want it to make it look like only 2 trustees were voting in your raises.
Sure.
So I'd rather have 4 trustees here. So if it has to wait 2 or 4 meetings or whatever it is, so if you know that somebody's not going to be here at that meeting or whatever, we just keep pushing it to the next agenda. Obviously, we're all going to be here before you know it. And if the salary is what is going to propel somebody to run for a treasurer, supervisor, or clerk, you know, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I just don't want 2 trustees to be the one that decide it.
We gotcha. So we certainly can postpone action. Just point of clarification, because you specifically made a statement like, oh, well, is there something you know about? In other words, maybe someone is or isn't going to be at a future meeting, or?
I know there will be an absence at the next meeting. I've already been informed of that. I know the following meeting falls during spring break, so the second meeting in March, I know I won't be here. So, you know, if we're looking for, you know, the likelihood of a full board doesn't occur until April 8th.
Based on what you know?
Based
from-
on what I know
Gotcha.
of people that have already asked to be excused.
Sure. Which doesn't preclude us from delaying. So what you're thinking is our March 11th meeting, you anticipate
I know.
one trustee.
One board member will be as asked to be excused.
I see. Okay. And that doesn't stop us from delaying or waiting. I mean, it's up to the will of the board. Because it isn't a motion, I would feel, you know, in other words, I guess.
I mean, we either take no action, or I'm not opposed to tabling it to a time specific, so we know when it's coming back.
Sure.
What is just for a reminder, and I think you mentioned this, what's the filing deadline?
April 23rd.
April 23rd?
Yes, sir.
So, any other thoughts on this?
No, but I think it's always an uncomfortable conversation when the 3 full-timers have to sit up here and try and justify any type of increase. And it's not about justifying, it's about doing what's right and retaining good people. So a lot of people getting paid a lot of money to do things either in public or private, and it's always a difficult conversation. So I'll agree with Ms. Rose to look at maybe the April 8th conversation and do it at that point. Was that the date, April 8th?
We said March 11th.
Well, that'd be the next meeting.
Oh.
The 8th would be the next.
I'm saying at the latest it's gonna be, yeah, so
Yeah, we make a decision on April 8th regardless, right?
Yeah, I'm okay with that, but I guess and again, when we talked about this previous, the whole idea was to make sure we take action prior to the filing deadline, so that there isn't an appearance that someone says, well, gee, if I would have known that by April 8th, that seems awful close to the filing deadline. That's within 2 weeks of the filing deadline. To me, that seems contrary to what we talked about when we said we were gonna take action that would coincide with giving people the opportunity to know what the office would pay.
Well, yeah, I think definitely, we implemented the trustees one, which hasn't been affected since 2008, and I think that was our concern last time. You guys would continue getting your standard, inflation rate, whatever, if we took no action at all, right?
No, we ultimately have to take action every year to adjust
Yeah.
any elected officials' raises.
All right, gotcha.
So the whole point is we can't establish a policy that says this is what the full-time officials or their deputies will take without taking action annually.
Okay, and right now your salary is around 84?
It's 80, I'll tell you in a minute.
I mean, I know it's in the budget, I could go back.
It's 87,664.
87,664,
Yep.
thank you.
And again, when we look at, just for comparison, of tossing out Gaines and Brownstown, where they have a deputy supervisor that makes substantially more than anybody else. The salaries for supervisor, Van Buren, 101, this is for 2023. Van Buren, 101, 168. Macomb, 103, 908. Washington, 94. Chesterfield, 106, 922. Commerce, 105, 393. Independence, 90,737. And Grand Rapids Township is 105, 599, 105.6. And that's 2023, and I'm proposing the end of 2024 at 95. There's one salary out of 7 that is less, was less. Could be more now, could be at 95. And so, I guess, I don't mind waiting, and I'm open to that, but I guess I have to question what's the intent. Is it gonna change what your vote would be?
Probably not, but my point is, I would like all 4 trustees to be here. I just think that's fair. I don't want it to be on the books that 2 trustees brought forth raises. Either we're all in it, or half of us are or aren't. I just feel like, we need to be a united front.
Sure. I got you. My point was, is if you're gonna get to a majority, regardless of whether someone's a president or not, it really doesn't make a difference.
Again, it's
That's
just a
my
preference. It's just a preference.
No, I understand.
And I know.
I'm just giving you my preference.
I know, and I know that, you guys can make a lot more out in the, public sector, or private
Private sector.
private sector.
I made, yep.
Which I know Larry probably left a job that paid him, way more than what he's making now, and he's doing amazing stuff for the township as treasurer. And I know you guys have dedicated your lives to this practically. So I don't have an issue, I just would rather have all 4 trustees here if possible.
Yep. So then if that's the consensus, and I'm looking to know if that's the consensus, does that mean I put it on the next agenda without knowing who's gonna be here, or we specifically don't put it on the next agenda?
We put it on the April 8th agenda.
That's what I heard. I heard that we know that for the next 2 meetings, we're gonna have at least 1 absence at each meeting. And right now, it seems like the 8th may be a full board again.
If it isn't,
Well, I think at that point, I think maybe if you do, maybe a motion to do a date specific may work as well. And then if somebody's absent, we would vote on that day.
so just for whatever it's worth, April 22nd is the second April meeting. And while I can't say always and never, my duties as the district director for the MTA, that is the beginning of the MTA conference in Traverse City, so my intention was not to be here for April 22nd. So I can't say I absolutely can or cannot. I could drive up to Traverse City at, 10 o'clock at night next, Monday, or the Monday, the 22nd, but my intention was not to be present at the April 22nd meeting, which again, doesn't mean we can or cannot talk about this then or whenever. But my point is that I'm just trying to make sure we understand, if we get to April 8th and we don't have all 4 trustees here, we're in a position of saying, okay, what is it that we do, right? And I'm just trying to understand that.
Mr. Batkins, what do you think about having the vote at the meeting when Adam's not here? Obviously, Adam probably wants to vote for these raises, but he said he won't be here that one time, but chances are the 4 trustees will. Would we want to move it up to the
It'll be March 25th?
25th?
Yeah, and again, I can always put it on the agenda. I mean, not to interrupt you before you get
no,
answered, but my point was, I think we have a long history of having consensus and not saying, okay, we're just gonna ram this through, right? So I just want to be clear, would we be willing to vote this time, that time? So your point is would we be willing to consider it on the 25th?
That's the day you're absent, Adam.
Yes.
You're the one absence that day. So assuming Adam's the only one absent on the 25th of March, can we put it on the agenda for that date and just relook at it? That way everybody can have even a month to digest this, just in case they want to do additional research. I mean, I know they had the board packet, but again, I just feel more comfortable if all 4 trustees were in attendance.
works for me. I mean,
I'd be fine with that, as long as Adam feels,
You're never, it's a moving target.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
I can't control who's here, who's not.
We
I mean,
we typically have full boards. I mean, it's that
Yeah.
time of year where I think
Vacation.
vacations and.
and again,
Yeah, spring breaks.
I shared that I wasn't gonna be here. I'm not dodging a vote. No one on this board has ever dodged a vote, and that's a gross accusation to make against any of the board members that honorably serve this community.
Right.
And so, obviously, I would prefer to be here
Oh, I understand
whenever I can,
that.
but,
Yes.
the school schedule is
We're
what the
not-
school schedule is.
Both,
We're not
both
having-
trustees who were absent noted their absence before the agenda was even published.
Right.
So there's no way that either David or Dean dodged something. Dean had something planned months in advance. David contacted me Monday.
Well, and this was a
telling me he
weird
wasn't
meeting
gonna
on
make it.
top of it because we moved it to dodge the election.
Right, so it wasn't a typical Monday, it's a Thursday,
Aha.
so that also throws things off.
Well, yeah, and I don't, you can't always believe what patrons say at the microphone, we don't all go to the same church, we don't all hang out, that's just false, I mean,
That's okay.
get your facts straight.
No, that's okay.
I know, it ruffles my feathers every
I
time I
know.
hear it because it's not true.
Yeah,
So if that's not true, what else isn't true?
and all I feel is talking about it just gives it validity, so
I
I
know,
just
well.
ignore it, but that's okay, everybody's got a different style. So would I say that it's a consensus of the current board members present that we would put this on the agenda for March 25th?
Yes.
Yes.
Comfortable with that? Okay,
Yes.
all right, good. So next on the agenda is public comments. So we'll open the floor for public comments. They can be about any subject you like. Typical, we do have a closed session, but we typically don't hold that closed session until after public comments so that we don't prevent people from speaking or make them stay later than they wish to.
C. William Bardell, 27-year resident, clean cut, do-gooder boy next door, clean up, fix up, people helping people. Just want to tell everyone, please check out Save Lake St. Clair. Press follow, stay up to date on everything. And I just want to ask Ken, would you please do me a favor when you talk about these road assessments? It's all fine and dandy with me. The only thing that I don't understand, that my brain explodes. When you talk about this road millage that failed, that was never, ever for local roads. Can you please stop muddying the waters on that? It was never, it might have did some connector roads, and I'm not 100% sure if yours is a connector road, okay? But it never, ever did local roads. So somewhere in there, the waters are muddied, okay? About, these local roads, subdivision roads, local roads where people have houses, okay, and people live, we live, local roads, okay? Residential local roads. The millage would have never, ever covered that. Please stop muddying the waters, okay? Like, again, we've been around a little bit. We know about that. The other thing is, yes, I do not go to your church. And when I put my signs out next to Candace Miller for C. William Bardell, for trustee, Democrat, clean up, fix up, people helping people, yes. Everyone steals my signs. They steal my signs by Paula's house. There was an old gentleman out there, stole my signs right down your street. Finally, at the end of the election, when I was losing, he told me where all the signs were, underneath the big tree. So there's people out there for you stealing my signs. That's fine. I will put my C. William Bardell for trustee signs next to Candace Miller's. But do me a favor, Ken, when you have your water department steal my signs, please have them take Candace Miller's signs too, if you would. And I do like the job she's doing now at the county position. But please, if you would, if you're gonna take my signs, because I spent a lot of money from Sawicki and Son. Had to go downtown Detroit, and I had to buy all the signs, okay? And would you please, if you take my signs or you have your henchmen call me and tell me where my signs are in the wrong spot, please take Candace Miller's signs too when you send your water department out to do your dirty work for you. Please. I'm a clean-cut, do-gooder boy next door. I only care about Harrison Township. You know, crucify me if I'm a Democrat. I hate incompetence. I hate laziness. Again, worked 3 jobs till I was 44 years old. I hate blight. I hate laziness. I hate incompetence. And if I call you up and tell you about something going on, I don't need to hear the same thing. Oh, there's a 95-year-old lady living there when I see a 28-year-old smoking a cigarette next to all the crap. Okay? We've heard it all before. You got to realize, again, I'm not that young. Okay? I don't smoke, drink, gamble, or anything else. Okay? That's why I'm young. But I've lived a long time. So you can't BS me. Okay? With that said, everyone have a wonderful evening, and, I hope we can clean up this mess. Okay? Sorry again, I don't go to your church, I'm not in your club. I'm a Democrat in a Republican town, just trying to help. And I got to go to these meetings to keep you guys honest, as much honesty as I can keep you. Thank you for listening. Enjoy your night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Sunstock, 31698 San Juan. I am a Republican, by the way. And I just want to say that it's not a Republican versus Democrat issue in this township. It's concern about whether or not you guys are doing the best job for the residents that can be done. It was indicated earlier by Ken that he compared us to Macomb, Washington, Chesterfield, and a few other communities. I'd like to see this sheet here that he submitted today updated with the current Harrison wages, because he corrected my percentages because I didn't have that. So I'd like to see that on the next sheet. So I believe with the rest of you guys, like to know exactly what you're approving. As far as Macomb, Washington, Chesterfield, every one of those places has about 36 square miles, 36, and even Chesterfield 34. Harrison Township has 14.3. So we got half the area. If you look at the populations, we also have roughly, except for Washington Township, we're basically almost half of those other counties that I mentioned. So don't tell me as your justification that I should compare with counties or with townships that are larger, bigger, and have more population and expect that you're going to get the same salary. That's not right, and the residents will know that's not right. So that's all I have to say. Like I said, I was hoping to discuss the full-timers, but I do agree with the trustee that I would like to see all the trustees here also voting on this thing. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board. My name is Joe Munum with GFL Environmental. My office address is 26999 Central Park Boulevard, Suite 200, Southfield, Michigan. I'm the Government Affairs Director, and we are your waste hauler. I'm very proud to be so. But the reason I'm here tonight is that we're proud of a new facility that we've opened. Oh, sorry. I passed out the cards earlier. We have opened one of the most advanced recycling facilities in the United States, and it's right here in Metro Detroit in Pontiac. In fact, It's on the site of the former General Motors Fiero assembly plant. So we not only are recycling materials, we recycled that plant. And we are inviting all of you to come take a tour and see what happens with recycling at this remarkable facility. Right now, using the advanced technology that we are employing there, we are recovering and recycling approximately 92% of the material that comes in, meaning only 8% is so contaminated that it's going to the landfill. That kind of recovery rate is extraordinary. And I'm sure you're all familiar with, basically in Lansing, as Eagle and the legislature are making moves to do more and more to divert waste from the landfills, that having a facility that has this capacity that can extract these kind of materials at this rate, that we just want to share this and let you see what's going on and how GFL is making an effort to divert that material and to really live up to our name and be green for life. So my contact information is on the sheets I handed out, and if you'd like to come and take the tour, we're doing this probably about twice a week. In fact, I was in Waterford Township on Monday night, and next Friday, I've got 4 members of, 3 board members and 2 staff members. And by all means, if you have staff members who'd like to come, they're invited as well. So thank you very much for the time and consideration and for our continued partnership. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment, move back to board comment. So there were certainly some things said during public comment I feel the need to respond to. Residents said I'm comparing us to Chesterfield and Macomb, and they're much larger. I'm not comparing us to Chesterfield and Macomb. I did include the wages from 2023 for Chesterfield and Macomb as a comparison, showing that Macomb supervisor, again, in 2023, was making 103.9, so about 104. Chesterfield is 106.9. That isn't to say that that's what we should make. I'm suggesting that near the end of this year, I'm suggesting that the salary for supervisor as well as the clerk and treasurer might be brought up to 95, which almost 2 years later is substantially less than Macomb and Chesterfield. I'm not comparing us to them. I'm giving that as data to show that we're nowhere near our peers. When I do compare our peers in terms of size, square footage, and taxable value to other municipalities in Michigan, we're also under. But I felt there was value in showing those numbers because it shows just even with the raise that we're about $10,000 less than our peers. To the resident who made the accusation that our water and sewer workers collect signs, I don't direct them. They don't do that, so that is offensive. And regarding muddying the water, I think it's valuable that we might read the actual language from the 2024 road millage proposal. So the question, as it was on the ballot, shall the Charter Township of Harrison levy an additional ad valorem millage of not more than 1.5 mils for 20 years from 2014 through 2033 for the purpose of providing revenue for repairing and replacing local streets, roadways, pathways, and trails, of which a portion will be dispersed to Macomb County Department of Roads to implement the improvements upon roads within the township as the township board determines appropriate. So to suggest that I'm somehow muddying the waters by suggesting that the road millage would cover local roads seems peculiar to me when it actually literally says the purpose was to replace and repair local streets and roadways. So I don't know how much more clear we could have been back in 2014 and how much more clear I could have been today when I made reference to that millage. Is there any other board comment? Hearing none, we've got a closed session. So I do know we've got some action there. Is there a motion to enter into, well, let me read the closed session. We have a closed session to discuss North Star Sail Club versus Harrison Township, Ripard versus Harrison Township, Five Star versus Harrison Township, Harrison Township versus McCullum, tax classification appeal regarding cannabis growers classified as commercial use. I know we listed all those, we may not be talking about all those, but that was kind of the total back when we had last corresponded.
I can do a sentence on each one or
Yeah.
more if you want.
Sure, absolutely. So that's the intent of the closed session. Simply stated, one of the trustees requested a comprehensive update of all the current litigation and where we stand on that. So those were the cases that we could think of. So is there a motion to enter into closed session for that purpose?
So moved.
All right, is there support?
Support.
Okay, got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Rose. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll open up the floor for public comment.
Yeah, I just have a question. Tax classification appeal the cannabis growers classified as commercial use. My understanding is that all of our commercial growers are located in the industrial corridor, and that's industrial use down there. So is that are they claiming that they want to go to commercial use? What's the story?
I can answer that once public comment is closed.
Oh, okay. Well, that was my only question.
Sure.
Just real quick, the reason why I made the statement about the local.
Is this about the closed session, sir?
Yeah. You kept saying we got to do these SCDs
That's not about the closed session, sir.
because you didn't want a
Public
road
comment is
millage.
about
You
the
kept
closed
saying it
session.
over and over. That's why I made the statement.
Thank you.
That's why. Like, again, I've been around a while. That's why I kept saying it.
Hearing no more public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment. Question was asked about the tax classification. So, where a property is zoned doesn't determine how a property is classified. So for example, you could have a residential property and it's a zoned industrial, it could be a non-conforming legal use. We would then assess taxes based on a residential assessment. So what we zone a property doesn't determine how it's taxed. So at a state level, there were, and again, this is a little bit outside my pay code, this is really the assessor, but there were discussions, should a cannabis grower be an agricultural use, in which case they would be assessed millages based on an agricultural use, should it be an industrial use, or should it be a commercial use? So the highest amount of millages, or the most millage that you would pay would be at a commercial level. I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think it's less at industrial, and it's even less maybe at agricultural. So the position of some of the cannabis growers in the Metro Detroit area is that they shouldn't be zoned, or they shouldn't be, not zoned, they shouldn't be classified for the purposes of which millages they're responsible for paying as commercial. The direction at the state level and amongst the assessors was that this is a commercial use. So they're appealing that, and I think the collective goal would be to try to get some traction and say, you know, could we be industrial? Could we be agricultural? That would mean they would pay, doesn't change their assessed or taxable value, but it would change the various millages that they have to pay. Not 100% sure on this, but I think it reduces the 18 mills or some of the other school taxes. So I couldn't tell you exact, but their position is, are we truly commercial use versus industrial versus agricultural? And so that's what the appeal is. I think at the first phase so far, I think it's a matter of public record, they were not successful, and so they're taking it to the next level, and that's what we're going to talk about. Any other board comments? Hearing none, we've got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mrs. Rose to enter into closed session for the various cases I stated earlier. Mr. Whit, will you please take the roll call?
Mr. Badkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Brado is excused. Mr. Olgiati is excused. Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Witt, yes. Mr. Burkowski?
Yes. We'll take a brief recess and enter into closed session.
Like 1988, seeing you two here all over again.
for a motion to enter into open session at 9:45.
So moved.
Is there support?
Support.
Okay, we've got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Tominello. Discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Batkins?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Brado is excused, Mr. Olgiati is excused, Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Witt, yes, Mr. Burkowski?
Yes. There was no proposed action from closed session, so I would be looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Is there support?
Support.
Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, board.